Hey, I want to start by bringing a brand new series today. And as we start this series, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to ask someone next to you this question. Who do you think are some of the most influential people over today's generation? Who do you think are some of the most influential people? Please turn to someone. Make sure no one is left out in twos and threes. Just ask someone, who are some of the most influential people over today's generation? Who are the most influential people? And I know you're in church, so you're tempted to say all the good Christian answers. You're saying the truth. You're real people with real issues. All right. I'd love to hear. Could you just shout out what you heard or what you said? Someone shout out. Huh? Which musician? Yeah. She's in the front row and her answer is Beyonce. Jeez. Oh my goodness. Real people with real issues. Okay, who else? Footballer. Which footballer? Messi. Who's the GOAT? Messi or Ronaldo? All right, Ronaldo it is. Okay, Messi it is. Who else is influential? Shout out some names. Kanye West. Huh? Hey. Simple boy. I'm just like now, Mafuno downtown. Is this why you have brought me here? But you know, it's interesting. When you think about influential people, many times the people who come to mind are celebrities, isn't it? You think about sports people, you think about actors, you think about musicians, you think about social media influencers, you think about all these people. You know what I find interesting about many of these people? One of the things I find interesting is that many of them have huge social media followings, and they're learning how to leverage their social media following for their benefit. I was doing some research this week, and I know you guys are Christians. You guys are Christians, aren't you? I know you are Christians. You're holy people. You don't know some of these people, but other people know them. Huh? So there's an artist, a rapper called Nicki Minaj. I know you guys don't know these people. I know you don't know them. But I was doing some research about her this week, and you know, for a single social media post, she can be paid up to $1 million. Up to $1 million. Turn to someone else, just tell them, look at your life. See your life now. You're just here posting memes and to do what? Surely. I was doing some research and I discovered, I had some people talk about Ronaldo. Do you know what? Ronaldo can make up to $3.2 million per post. Messi, I think, makes $2.4 million per post. Who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Ebu, let's see the picture. Which is the next picture? That picture, I think, tells us something that the other one didn't tell us. In Kenya, I discovered there are people, people like that who can make, well, not in the millions of dollars, but who can make up to 100,000 Kenya shillings per single post. See your life. See your life, let me just tell you. But it's interesting. Because even, you know, we really are an influencer generation. We spend our days, many people spend their days trying to grow their footprint, trying to grow their influence. If you went into the CBD today, after this service, what are you likely to find? You'll find people shooting videos, people like this, all over the place. People have set up cameras and lights. Have you guys seen that? Yeah. Maybe some of you are headed there today after this service. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But we see those things. And people are craving for influence. We really truly live in an influencer world. But the question is it a bad thing? Is it a bad thing or is it a good thing? Is influence a bad thing? Is it a bad thing to chase? Is it a bad thing to chase? Should we be chasing after it or shunning it? Is it something that we were created for? Is it a God-given thing or is it a man-made thing? What is this influence thing? This month, and today we start this series, it's called The Invitation, your all-access pass to a life of influence. And you know, when it comes to talking about influence, there's one man who trumps everybody in as far as influence is concerned. This guy had no social media handle, he had no followers or anything like that. In fact, if you do a global poll, you may find that his life may be one of the most influential in the entire history of humanity. In fact, so much so that there's a poet by the name of James Allen Francis who wrote this incredible poem about this man. I got a little snippet of this poem. See what it says. It says, this man never wrote a book, never held office. He never had a family or owned a home. He didn't go to college. He never lived in a big city. He never traveled 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of the things that usually accompany greatness. He had no credentials but himself. Then it says this, yet 20 centuries have come and gone, and today this man is the central figure of the entire human race. He says, I am well within the mark when I say that all the armies that have marched, all the navies that have ever sailed, and all the parliaments that have ever sat, and all the kings that sit in Buckingham Palace put together have not affected the life of mankind on this earth as much as this one solitary life. And the poem is actually called One Solitary Life. Hey, talk about influence. That one solitary man years ago is the reason why you're seated here today. That's influence. He's the reason why across the city, the nation, and probably the world, there are people who are seated in places like this because of the influence of that one man. And you know what's even more profound about this one man? Is that this one man said that, understanding his influence, he said, those who follow me will be more influential than me. It's an incredible thing. You guys don't know if you believe me. John chapter 14 and verse 12 says this. It records his words to his disciples. Of course, we're talking about Jesus. He says, I tell you the truth. Whoever believes in me will be able to do what I have done, but they will do even greater things because I return to be with the Father. It's not that they might or that they could. Is that what you read? It's that they will. Now, turn to me. We want to read a passage of scripture and just talk a little bit about this journey of influence that we see from his life. It's in the book of Mark, chapter 1, verse 14 to 20. Mark, chapter 1, verse 14 to 20. And it says this. It says, after John, this is John the Baptist, was put in prison, Jesus went into Galilee, proclaiming the good news of God. He said, the time has come. The kingdom of God has come near. Repent and believe the good news. And as Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon, remember these characters, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. And he says to them, come, follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little further, he saw James, so two other characters, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. So now we have four characters in a boat preparing their nets. Without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men, and they followed him. Now, reading through the Gospels, let me tell you, church, there's one thing that Jesus spoke about more than he spoke about anything else. And that one thing he spoke about was, anyone know? The kingdom of God. That's the one thing that he spoke about more than anything else. And what's the kingdom of God? It's about God's rulership over everything. That was the kingdom of God. And he spoke about it regularly. Now, the people who listened to him speak, many of them were living under Roman subjugation, under Roman oppression. And what they were waiting for was this Messiah who would come and start a political revolution. Haki yetu. Haki yetu. That's what they were hoping for. Someone who would come and free them from the oppression that they suffered under the Roman people. They were waiting for a political revolution. But it's so interesting because Jesus had a revolution in mind. But it was a different revolution from what the people had anticipated. His revolution was about starting a movement of radical, passionate followers who would spread God's love and influence around the world. That's the revolution that Jesus was starting. Now, there are two things that are unique about how Jesus went about this revolution and how he went about especially picking leaders for this revolution. So follow with me. Two things. The first interesting thing was who did the recruiting. Who did the recruiting? Now, you guys look like intelligent people. Look at the person next to you, just don't say anything, but they look like intelligent people. We look like intelligent people. Imagine if you were applying to a university of high standard and pedigree, such as... Must I explain every word pedigree means? Let me explain it to you. No, I'm kidding. But imagine if you are applying to a university of great standing. Thank you. I was waiting for someone to say, anyone say Desta? I have thoughts about that, but that's for another service. But imagine you're applying. What do? You're the one who pursues them, isn't it? You go onto their website, or you look for their prospectus, you get the application forms, you fill out the application forms, you send, and you wait. And you wait for them to make their decision, isn't it? And depending on how prestigious it is, they may even call you for an interview. So if you want called for an interview, know your university is not prestigious. People who are shouting out, they may call you for an interview. A really prestigious university may call you for an interview because they are chasing after. No, it's you who's chasing after them. You're the one who needs them. So you apply to them. In Jesus' day, by the way, it was very similar. It wasn't the universities of learning, but there were teachers and rabbis of great repute and great standing. And people wanted to be mentored and to be discipled and to be led by these incredible rabbis. And what they would do is that they would go seek out after the rabbis. So it's me chasing after the rabbi. Jesus turned this equation completely upside down. For him, he's the one who did the recruiting. Imagine Harvard University. Harvard University sending you a letter and telling you, we want you. And we have a scholarship for you. For whatever course you want. People are receiving their own things from this sermon. Do an illustration, guys. People are receiving, they're like, oh, that's what I came for today. Hallelujah. I can go home. You can do the altar call now. But imagine them looking for you. That's really what happened in this case. Because Jesus, who was a teacher and a rabbi, goes out to look for his people. He's the one who does. Remember, he's coming to start this revolution. He's the one who goes out looking for his people. John 15:16 says this. Jesus is speaking to his disciples and he says, you did not choose me, but I chose you and I appointed you to go and bear much fruit. So the first interesting thing was, look. The first thing was, the one who did the recruiting was the first interesting thing. The second thing that I find interesting was who was recruited. If I was Jesus, I could see myself doing like a Shark Tank. Have you guys watched Shark Tank? Not the animated movie. Some of you you're thinking cartoons. Shark Tank or what's I keep forgetting it. The Kenyan one, Lion's Den. I think of Lion's Den, where I'm just like I have to get or The Apprentice. I have to get the best of the best. If it was up to me, Korea, that's how I would go about this thing of looking for people. If I was going to start this incredible revolution, Jesus could have had his pick of the most sophisticated people in all of Jerusalem. He could have. But instead, Jesus chose to start in a backward little place called Galilee. What's a backward little place in Kenya? You guys, leave Rongai alone. Rongai has suffered enough. We need to find somebody else now to pick on. We need to find somewhere else to pick on. But Jesus starts in this little backward place called Galilee. But even in Galilee, he could have gone to the leading families, the wealthy families, the ones with spiritual pedigree. He would have gone to them to recruit them to become his followers. But instead, Jesus, he flips, he does something throughout. By the way, if you think about it, throughout Scripture, no one does what he does. What Jesus does is that he picks uneducated fishermen. Uneducated fishermen. Have you ever entered a jar with someone who's carrying fish? Or a car with someone who's carrying fish? You know the aroma of goodness that just emanates. Those are the people that Jesus was going for. Uneducated fishermen. No spiritual pedigree of any kind. They were considered unlearned in spiritual things. In fact, you could easily say that there were some of the least qualified people. That's who Jesus went for. He's starting a revolution. He picked the least qualified to help him with his revolution. Now, for some of us sitting here, maybe you're very aware of the fact that if it's not for Jesus, you might be the least likely person to be sitting in church today. Anyone like that here? Maybe you're the least likely person to be sitting here today. You did not grow up in a religious family, or even if you did, you are maybe the least spiritually inclined of everybody in that family. You weren't known within churches and crusades. Maybe you are known in other places. Maybe in bars or clubs, or maybe that's where you, in a sense, were known. Look at the person next to you, but don't say anything. Just look at them. Don't say anything. But I suspect there are others here who weren't that bad. Maybe some of you, by the time you walked into Mavuno, you're already Christians. Maybe you grew up in church, you were saved for some years. If your church had altar boys and altar girls, it would be you, for sure. You are a decorated spiritual war veteran. You do keshas, you are used to doing keshas. In fact, this thing that Mavuno Downtown does of worship night is baby class. It's just like we just do 3 hours. Me, I'm used to doing 3 days. Hallelujah. Maybe you are a decorated war veteran. But I want to say this. Regardless of where you were, this is the interesting thing. Regardless of where you are on that spectrum, regardless of whether you say, man, I have no business being in church, or others who will say, hey, I even grew up in church as an altar boy, none of us qualified for an invitation to be with Jesus. Just like the disciples, he invited you. He chose you, and he qualified you. In his incredible wisdom, he called and qualified everyone seated here to be a part of that revolution. Now let me just say, I've had the privilege through the years of kind of having a front row seat at Mavuno and just seeing what God is doing. This year Mavuno turns, who knows how many years? 18 years. This year as a movement we turn 18 years. And I've had the privilege of being a part of that for maybe 17 of those 18 years. And kind of just seeing what it is that God has done across the movement through the years. I've always appreciated one thing about Mavuno. The call that God gave this church to reach some of the least likely, least qualified people. Some of them are urban and church who are skeptical about church. Some disillusioned about church. Some even indifferent about church. And maybe few churches were reaching people like that. For people like this, the church is either a scam, a place that just wants your money. It's a place where people go to look and feel religious. Or it's a place for foolish, misguided people who cannot think for themselves. Look at your neighbor again, but say nothing. Say nothing. But I bless God, having seen what God has done through the years, as God has called many people who are unqualified to come into Mavuno to see what God has done. That 18 years later, what started as a little grouping of people now has a footprint that reaches out to 10,000 people every single week across almost 50 campuses in the country and beyond. I've been amazed just sitting and watching. I've watched life change happen for people, unlikely people. I've watched marriages being restored for people in Mavuno, even here at Mavuno Downtown. And I could tell you stories about that. I've seen people who seemed like the least likely being called and entering into leadership positions and leading other people. And today, I want to introduce you to one such person. Are you ready? You're not ready. Are you ready, Mavuno Church Downtown? Then put your hands together for Mr. Chris Nyalwao. Karibu sana, Chris. Now, Chris, you'll get to know a little bit about him as he comes. Celebrate him as he comes, please. You'll get to know a little bit more about him as he comes, but, we'll just share his story a bit. You want to say hello to the people first?
Good morning, Mavuno. Oh, good afternoon, sorry. How are you all doing? Thank you for having me today.
All right. It's morning until you have lunch, please. Have you had lunch? Good morning. Till you have your lunch. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit more about Chris, and you'll hear a bit more about him as we go through his story. But I've come with him from Mavuno Church, Lavington. And I have just a couple of questions for you. First question for you is this. You're a believer now, you're in different Christian places now, but you weren't always a believer, and you weren't always following Jesus.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your life, kind of before Mavuno, before following Jesus.
Okay, so I grew up in an Anglican family. So my mom was the serious Anglican, and my dad was my dad. So we used to go.
Africans understand
Yes.
that.
So Sunday was the day for mom. Everyone were going to church, right? And she had military training in her previous life, and she's like, leave no man behind. So everyone going to church, otherwise you'll not eat. All right. So we were going to church every Sunday, and to me it felt like ticking the box, because I really didn't have the conviction. It was just going every Sunday and doing it and then coming back home. And I wasn't really growing in any single way. So until the point when I eventually started working. Say started working. Somebody say started working.
Started working. Something happened.
Became an independent man, yeah? And then I finally could afford my own food. So I moved out, right? And when I moved out, I got this now freedom that I've been seeking. Of course, now you can tell I didn't have to go to church, so I dropped that routine. And now on Sunday, it was a time to recover after a long night, hangovers and all that. Used to do a lot of partying. I was the guy for plans. If you had something and you needed to have fun somewhere, I was the guy. So of course we engaged in things like, I know you guys don't do these things, but yeah, we don't.
Not downtown, no.
Yeah,
No, maybe Lavington.
so the weekend would start like on a Thursday, drinking something cold as you move on, drinking, partying, looking for girls, looking for relationships, situationships, and any other ship.
That would come your way.
That will come your way. And yeah, so that was the way it was at that time, yeah.
So what I've heard you say is you grew up in this Anglican church, and Anglican church is a fantastic place. Nothing wrong with it. Just that you didn't connect. You didn't connect, and you grew up far away from God. You move out of home. Once you do, you find your life. And this guy hasn't even told you half the story, by the way. But it was a bit of a wild life that you lived with partying and girls and whatnot, and that was your life. Now, we fast forward a little bit, and something happens to you in your journey of faith. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I used to work in Nairobi. Then at some point, I got a job to go to Eldoret. And my plan was to go to Eldoret for 1 year, then come back to Nairobi, because my family was here, everyone was here, my whole life was here. And so I went to Eldoret, and after 1 year, I was looking for another job to come back, but it was not happening. So 1 year turned to 2 years. Then 2 years turned to 3 years. Then 3 turned to 4 years. Then 4 turns to 5. And now we're in 2020 in the middle of COVID. And now people are being laid off, and me, I'm there trusting God for a job. Yes. So in Nairobi. So I remember one day, I was telling Pastor Kuria that in my previous life, God was like the fire extinguisher in a building. You only go to it when there's a fire.
It's fire insurance.
So I think this is the time when now I looked and said, let me look at the fire extinguisher and see if it still works. So I went down on my knees one night, just a random night.
By yourself?
Just
no
by
one...
myself, no one. Because in the time I was in Eldoret, I could count the number of times I'd been to church. And I was like a VIP. I show up on Easter once. I show up Christmas. There's proper VIP, and then like that. So then this day, I went down on my knees. I really prayed from my heart and all that. So I woke up in the morning, and I had this serious joy, like I was in high spirits. And I had this impression that I was going to be called by somebody. I didn't know who was going to call me, but I was going to be called. So start the morning, anytime anyone called me, I would really rush to pick my call. Not like those days when, who is calling me now? I pick my call, and because I'm in finance, it's a supplier asking for their payment. I cancel that.
That's what the finance guys do.
Sometimes.
We are chasing our payments.
Yes. So it reaches lunchtime, still nothing. I'm still hopeful. It reaches 3 p.m. It's somebody else calls me, it's my boss, he's asking me for a meeting. I'm like, okay, time is running out. The day is ending. Then at 4 p.m., I get a call from an institution I'd applied for a job for, and they're like, you had called us, you had applied for a director position with us some time back. Apologies, this took quite some time to get back to you, and would you still like the position? I was like, whoa, okay. So
that was
this
your call.
fire extinguisher still works. The thing is that throughout the time that before this prayer, I had done so many things, and I felt like I was embarrassed to even go back to God. I felt like I was broken. I was like, I'm not really worthy to be, saying God's name and all that. So when I got these calls, like, whoa, God still remembers me. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just a crazy moment for me, and yeah.
So it's interesting thing if you're following the story. Far away from God, and you kind of have this come to Jesus moment all by yourself. And the conviction of God is over you, and you make this prayer. And it's the beginning of kind of like a rekindling or a stirring of faith within your heart, the heart of someone who's far away from God. Yeah. I know now because I know the story. You end up dating someone who's coming to Mavuno. They kind of, I know that the conversation you told us was that, and she says to you, we must go to church. Yeah. And at the time you're thinking, I'm Anglican, let's go to Anglican church. And she's like, no, let's go to Mavuno. And you end up together going to Mavuno. What happens to you there?
Okay, so my wife, unfortunately, she's not feeling too well. She could have been here sharing this story. Yeah. We started seriously dating. And I realized there's a difference between seriously dating and dating seriously.
That is a whole sermon series. I don't think we are ready for it today. It's a whole series.
Yeah. Yeah, so we knew what we wanted. The end goal was marriage. And so these discussions used to pop up when we were together. It's like, okay, now we need to, we're going to get married. We need to start going to church. Our kids need to start going to church and all that. But where will we go? So I grew up knowing Anglican. That's the way. So according to me, it was a no-brainer. We're going to Anglican, right?
Na
mimi ndio mzee. Yeah, but she challenged me and said, but you say you're Anglican, but you're not really convicted about it. So why take people somewhere where you yourself, you're not that convicted of? So she's, luckily enough, we were house hunting for where we would go stay, and then we got a place on Vera Road, and she was like, okay, there's Mavuno Lavington nearby. Why not try that out and see how it goes? And so we went there, and after a month of just being there, it was different. It was different. I felt like the sermons were very, very practical for somebody like me. We were the unchurched, as Pastor Kuri is saying. So the sermons, I felt they were really, I could relate to them, and they'll give me practical tips of what to do. And the environment was really, really good. And I remember after a month or so, Pastor M, our senior pastor, came, and he gave us someone, as he always does, a powerful sermon that he gives. And that day he said, okay, so this year we're trusting God for 3 things: for spiritual growth, getting out of debt, and I can't remember the third one for some reason, and deliverance. Yeah, so I just remember that day I'm saying, okay, fine, I'm all in. I'm all in. Whatever this is, I'm all in, and let's see how it goes. Yeah.
So if you're tracking the story, you end up coming to one of the Mavuno churches, and you're still on this kind of journey of yours. And this time, Pastor Murithi, our senior pastor, comes, he shares this message on surrender, and this is the moment for you. You're just like, I surrender. Yeah. Whatever it is. Now, I want to kind of skip ahead and tell you a little bit about his story, because it's such an incredible story, and if we had time, we'd just sit here and talk through it. But here is someone who maybe a year and a half ago was far away from God. When you think about unqualified even to be standing here, I don't think a year and a half ago he'd be thinking I'd be standing here sharing my story. But he's not just sharing that part of the story. What's happened to him now? Chris is one of the associates, lead associates of Mavuno kids at Mavuno Church Lavington. Would you believe that? He's one of the high capacity associates at Mavuno Lavington. On top of that, someone say Isitoshe. Isitoshe, Chris now has started a discipleship group, and he's a discipleship group leader at Lavington. I know you guys are not impressed by that, but it's a big deal. But let me tell you more than that. Because here is this guy who a few months ago was far away from God, has come, is leading others. He has now led one of his sisters to Christ. And now she comes to Lavington as well. He has another sister who now, as a result of him, comes for our morning prayers every single morning. He has a nephew who has now come to Christ and is one of our associates in the media team at Mavuno Church Lavington. Are you guys hearing this story? Someone who just a few months ago was far away has come, he's encountered something, and his life has really, really begun to change. Let me tell you, this guy is amazing. He doesn't know. We talked about it with my wife just this past week. Morning prayers. How many people come for morning prayers? Let me tell you, morning prayers, you will never miss Chris Nyalwal. Never, ever. I don't think I have been there and he's not been there. He's there regularly, and it's him and his wife. Regularly, every single morning. And here is someone who gave his life to Christ, a year and a half, 2 years ago. But this is what God has done in his life as he has given himself into surrender. But something also happened to you at the Downtown Network gathering that happened how long ago? A few weeks ago.
Yeah. So before the gathering, I had for some reason a very strange dream, and in this dream there were three people that I loved. I couldn't tell who they were, but they meant a lot to me, and there were these funny creatures around them. And the only way I could save these people that I loved, I felt like I could do nothing else but pray. All right. So I was wondering, what is this all about? And then I shared with one of my sisters about it, Maureen. I told her, hey, there was this strange dream I had. I'm feeling a kind of a funny way. And then come the gathering, and we are there. It was an awesome session. And then afternoon session was the impartation part. And Pastor M was there, like, anyone who wants to receive any gift, kindly just raise...
So spiritual gifts.
Spiritual gifts, not money. Spiritual gifts.
You know you're in finance. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, spiritual gifts. So I was like, I want to receive the gift of healing. And we prayed, and after some time I started feeling this tingling in my hands. Like it was evident, like it wasn't those ones for just an itch. It lasted for some time. And come morning prayers on Monday, somebody shared their testimonies, like, I prayed for the gift of healing, and this is what happened to me. There was a tingling in my hand. So I knew that was God confirming to me that I also had received the gift of healing. And Isitoshe, as he likes saying, I tested it. So my wife was sick some night, and she woke up with this pain in the middle of the night. And I was there, like, she woke me up, and she's like, hey, there's this pain. And the old me would have simply said, okay, let's get up, let's go to hospital immediately. But the new me decided, let me touch where it's hurting, and let's pray about it. And I prayed, and as soon as I was done, to my wife's shock, I went back to sleep. I didn't take her up, I didn't take her to the hospital, I just said, okay, let's just sleep and see how it goes. And 5 minutes later, she was well. The pain had left, she was good, and yeah. So clearly, yes.
And this is serious, debilitating pain that she's in.
Yes, exactly. Like, it was crazy. And the next morning, she's like, what has happened to you, man? Like, before, this would not have been you. So clearly, there was spiritual growth that happened. Yeah.
You know, you can celebrate him. You know, I say, and I said it, and I said in the first service as well, this is the power of God at work. For ordinary people, some who are far away from God, who feel unqualified, who feel like God can't forgive them for the things that he has done, that they have done. But here's someone who comes, surrenders his life to Christ. I suspect there are people who knew you 2 years ago. If they sat here, they'd be like, who is that on stage? Yeah. He's leading others to Christ. He's leading a discipleship group. He's a key associate. He's in prayer every morning, morning prayers. God is establishing. And I pray for you, Chris, that the Lord establishes every spiritual gift that he has given you. It may sound fanciful to some people, but this is how spiritual gifts start. And the idea is that as you put them, it's like a muscle. As you put this muscle to work, the Lord will establish. And I pray that he'll establish this thing. This year we've also prayed as Mavuno for this thing. If we talk about ease and acceleration. That's what's happened to him. We didn't talk about it in the first service, but since you became a believer, you started this initiative, you're in finance, called Craft Your Future. Yes. And God has just accelerated this thing in a crazy way. Yeah. In fact, you were telling me that as you were driving here today, that when you began this business, when did you start it?
Last year in about July.
Last year in July, that you're far ahead of schedule of where you thought you would be.
Yes.
In this season. Just tell them just quickly what Craft Your Future is.
So Craft Your Future is a personal coaching program that we teach guys how to manage their finances, just grow, invest, protecting your wealth and inheritance and so forth. So this is what I do. I have a passion for it. And so we started Craft Your Future, and in my mind, I knew a business takes 3-4 years before it really gets proper traction. So just yesterday, I started my 9th cohort.
Wow.
And this might sound very easy for some people, but my first cohort was my family members. Like, I trained my family members, but I didn't know where the other cohorts would come from. So then the funny thing, the next cohort, I have people. Then I'm like, okay, let's do it again. Then again, I'm like, whoa, okay, what's happening? Fast forward that, this year I had my first summit, Next Generation Investor Summit. My goodness, the people I shared the stage with, I had no business being there. But God, who is God?
Acceleration. Ease and acceleration.
Yeah. And just last week, I had my first international training, guys. First international training. So, ease and acceleration, yeah.
Whenever I think about Chris, he's a big part of our community at Lavington. Whenever I think about him, I think this is exhibit A of surrender. Of someone who comes and surrenders his life and says, Lord, you take this life. And then we see what the Lord has done. May the Lord establish you. I pray that he'll establish the work of your hands as well, even with Craft Your Future. I pray that he would establish the work of your hands and that you'd have incredible, incredible impact. I pray for you and your family that you will continue to have family impact. And others even who don't know Jesus, as a result of you, will come to know him. And you will sit around a table together one day around a home and you will celebrate the doing of the Lord because you surrendered your life to Christ. Come on, celebrate Chris. Thank you so much. What an incredible, incredible story. And as one of our DG leaders, I look at him and I'm just like, wow. I say, many people, I tell my congregation, many of us have been believers for many years. He's been for a short time. His family is coming to know Christ. He's starting disciple. It's because he surrendered his life. It's interesting. Jesus with the disciples said something. And you read it. He said, come, follow me. You read that? But he said, come, follow me, and I will make you. When you follow me, I will make you fishers of men. It's interesting because I wonder about this fishermen. I wonder about Simon and Andrew and what their aspirations were when they met Jesus by the boat. I wonder if they were kind of just hustling for their everyday life. I wonder if their aspiration was to say, oh man, one day we're going to have a second boat. We're going to work hard, we're going to make money, we're going to make a second boat, we're going to be catching twice the amount of fish that we were catching before. And they said to themselves, you know what, in fact, one day we're going to work so hard, we're going to have a fleet of boats, and we're going to call it, just like in pure Kenyan fashion, Simandru and Sons, because that's what Kenyans would do. Simon and Andrew, just join them and say, this is the name. So I say, we're going to start this incredible fleet, and then we're going to join up with the sons of Zebedee that we read about, James and John, and then we're going to take over the whole of Galilee, the whole of Jerusalem, and the whole of Judea. We are going to be the men where fish is concerned. I wonder if that was what their aspiration was. And it's interesting that when Jesus encounters fishermen, he doesn't criticize their ambition. He doesn't in any way trash their ambitions. He's like, in fact, that thing for catching fish, it's God who has placed it inside your heart. But if you surrender that thing to me, you will catch things bigger than you have ever imagined. It's almost like there's a thing that God has placed inside each and every one of us. And every one of us is hustling to make it on our own. We are hustling with our ambitions. We are hustling because of what we want to become and what we want, our lives to look like, what we want our families to enjoy. We are hustling. And I wonder if Jesus would come and, in the same way that he spoke to them and said, listen, that hustle you have, that desire you have, it's me. It's me who put it inside you. But if you come and you follow me, you will experience something bigger than your ambitions, bigger than your dreams, bigger than anything else that you would have ever imagined. In fact, the one point today that I'll give is this. God wants to make your life so attractive that it will influence many for eternity. That's what Jesus wants to do. He wants to make your life incredibly, incredibly attractive. Every single one of us. And there are things that he has put inside of us, just like this fisherman. And we are hustling on our own because our lives are not surrendered to him. We are working hard at these things on our own. And Jesus comes and says, come, follow me, and I will do this for you. Jesus was telling these guys that they were created for more than how they had interpreted their ambition. He had created them for more than how they had interpreted the thing that they thought they were hustling for every single day. You see, the ambitions to look after the basics are good. But those things you are hustling for, those plans for success you are making, what they are is an indication of greater things, of something that God has placed inside of each one. And his call to us is surrender. Now you ask, what does this have to do with influence? What does it have to do with a conversation about influence? Everything. Because see, this call to follow Jesus is not a one-time event. It's not like following someone on Instagram. You click and now you get these periodic updates as you go along. To follow Jesus has to do with surrendering your ambition. Saying these things that you have put inside of me, the desires you have put inside of me, the ambitions you have put inside, why have you put them there inside of me? How can I begin to understand why it is? And we say, Lord, I want to stop living for myself. Because that's what the fishermen were doing. They were living for themselves. They were living for their ambitions and for their dreams. And until Jesus comes to them and says, put down your ambition, I'll show you something greater. I'll show you a greater life of influence. Because God wants to make your life so attractive that it will influence many for eternity. I look around today and I wonder if many of us who are following Jesus may have lost their script. At some point, this following Jesus becomes about us. It becomes about me, how I can make my life better. I could see the fishermen going to Jesus and saying, Jesus, just pray for us so that we can catch more fish, so that our ambitions can be met. And many times what happens is we end up settling for a good life when God may have called us to something extraordinary, greater than that. Sometimes even I settle for my personal dreams. And I have no idea it's the Lord himself who has put that dream inside of my heart. And as I surrender my life to him, he's able to multiply the effect of it and allow it to become something greater than anything that I would imagine. I think sometimes we've lost it. And sometimes I feel like we also teach this. I tell Lavington frequently, we teach this broken Christianity. This broken Christianity that says, be a good Christian. Come to church. Guys, good Christians come to church, don't they? Good Christians, come to church. Serve. When you have time, serve. When you can't, give. And we look at me and say, oh, that's a good Christian. Bless God for that Christian. But I wonder if Jesus is saying, I'm glad you do those things. It's good. They are all commendable things. But what the Lord wants is my life completely surrendered to him. He doesn't want tokens that I give him on Sunday. And we've taught this Christianity of duality, where I live my life from Monday to Friday a particular way, and on the weekends I give towards God. I give my time, and I say, that I bless God. I'm like, bless God if you do those things. But what the Lord wants more than anything else is that my knee is bowed to him. My life is surrendered. That my ambitions on Monday are surrendered to him. Hey, let me tell you, there's some people here, maybe you're a hustler during the week. Maybe you have some good corporate jobs, or maybe you're a banker. Do you know that desire that you have, God has placed it in you? And many of us are living our lives trying to figure out, we're trying to work it out for ourselves. And the Lord is like, would you surrender it to me? Would you allow me? Give it to me so I can show you. He wants your life completely surrendered before him, is what he wants. And he wants us to break away from this thinking of duality, that I have my life and I give to Jesus what I can when I can. Jesus doesn't want our tokens. He doesn't want our tokens. What he's after is my life surrendered before him. To ask myself, God, what have you placed? And as you sit here today, I wonder, what has the Lord placed inside of you? What dreams, ambitions, what skills has he placed? I wonder if the idea of him placing them inside you was to accomplish more with them than you could on your own. And maybe someone needs to say, Lord, I need to figure out, when you send me to work on Monday morning, what do you want? For someone to wake up on Monday morning, tomorrow morning, go for morning prayers, 4:30 a.m., and ask the Lord, what do you want? But many times we'll come and we'll say, Lord, this is what I want. That's Simon and Andrew saying, Lord, can you help us get more fish? And Jesus is like, no, I want to change this thing. I want you to know what I want for you. And I wonder if it's saying, in the morning, I say to the Lord, what do you want? Someone here who runs a business, you're running a business and you've been hustling with this business. I wonder if that business was given to you by the Lord himself. It's him who's put the desires inside of you. And as long as you're not surrendered and you're trying on your own, you will only accomplish so much. And you may accomplish. I wonder if Simon and Andrew, could have gone on to be great fishermen. Maybe they could have. But what's interesting about them, what's curious about them, is there's two things I see. One is that when Jesus spoke to these disciples, to the fishermen, there were probably many fishermen who were there. There were many fishermen who were there. And they had their ambitions, and many of them probably went on to accomplish great things in the fishing industry and in the fishing world. We don't know one of their names today. How many people here have a Simon, an Andrew, a James, or a John in their family? Or you know someone by any of those names? Yes, Pastor Simon, all of you know him. I don't know why hands are not raised. But the point of it is, their legacy withstood the test of time because they responded when Jesus said, come, follow me. And it's interesting what they did. If you read the passage, they put down their nets immediately and they followed after him. And the desire they had in their heart was far, far exceeded. 2,000 years later, here we are sitting and remembering the names of these people. And the Lord, as we close today, would say this: meeting your dream is good, but it's a small thing. Guys, you won't know. You won't know what God created you for. You won't know. You live your life trying to tick boxes, coming to church and paying first fruits. You'll try and do all the right things, trying to figure out, how do I gain bonga points with God to make sure that I'm in his good books? How do I make sure Papa Kido looks at me and he's just like, hey, that's a good one. This one is following. What if God doesn't want any of that? What if God wants your entire life? I meet many people today, even within Novo, who say, oh man, I feel like we're being asked for too much. Anyone feel like that? Not at downtown, I know. You have a friend. I feel like, hey, I come to church, I'm being asked for too much. Man, I have a job. I have a business. I have a life. I have a family. I'm being asked for too many things. And I wonder if it's part of that duality that we have, that there's church and the things we are asked for, then there's my life. And God is saying, no, give this one up. Your life is mine. Your life, everything about it, the gifts you have are mine. Use them. There's some, I suspect, who will sit in a place like this and God has given you incredible gifts that will be of benefit to your community. But you'll say, oh man, I have a job, I have a life, I have all these things. And the Lord is saying, well, you go and be a fisherman. Or come follow me and allow me to make you. Some of us will look with our resources and we'll say, oh man, I don't know how much. Because in our minds, we think we are giving Mavuno downtown. In our minds, we think we're giving Papa Kilo. And the Lord is saying, no, it has nothing to do with that. Release your resource. Release that your heart is surrendered before God so He can begin to use you and give you that life of influence and impact that He has. I had Papa Kilo, he told me about this, calling people to come and serve in different places. I think one of the places was the worship team. Was it the worship team? He's been calling people to come and serve. And maybe you're sitting there with your gift and you're like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I have. The Lord wants everything. When Jesus was asked one time as the Pharisees tried to trap Him, they said, hey, what's the greatest commandment? And He said, love the Lord your God with everything. With your heart, that means your devotion. Love Him with all of it. It's like love Him with your mind, with your soul, with your body. Your body includes the work of your hands, the resources that you give, the skills that God gives. I think my point in all of this, and I think I've made my point, is just to say, this fishermen came. They were going about their lives and their ambitions. And Jesus turned to them and said, come, let me make you. Stop making yourself. And I wonder if the Lord would invite some of us today and say, stop making yourself. Allow me to make you. Surrender your life completely to me. God wants to make your life so attractive that it will influence others for eternity.